Okay, so today we will be covering everything you need to know about processing your property owner remittances, okay? We will be going through quite a bit today, but I would say that's a good thing. So what we will be covering today is we will be learning how to set your preferences on how you would like to remit to your landlords. So that just basically means if you might have a landlord that owns, I don't know, maybe about 10 properties, and it's just whether or not you send money to your landlords in batch, based on sort of everything, all of the properties that they own, or maybe you send the remittances to the landlords based on, you know, the properties that they own. So you send the money to them on a property by property basis. So we will be covering that today. The process of creating your remittance, paying your landlords and sending them the statement. So I will be sort of presenting to you the flow of how you should be doing it in Arthur. I mean, it's not, you know, mandatory, but it is what we would suggest as best practice when using our system. How to create a property owner remittance in batch and individual. So I will show you how to create, you know, batch remittances, and then we can also go through how to go through it on an individual basis. Adding charges to deduct money from your landlord. So it could be sundry charges, any contractor deductions, any sort of any, I don't know, ad hoc, maybe you have a let fee. All of these things, I will be showing you sort of how you would deduct that money from the landlord, how to just have it sitting on the statement, and what to do if maybe you've forgotten to add the charge, but you're on the remittance page and you would like to add the charge there and then for the landlord. Sending remittance statements to your landlords in batch. What's not in this PowerPoint is also, I will show you how to do it on an individual basis as well. We will be going through how to export a CSV file from Arthur to import to your bank account. Some of you, you know, might have a lot of remittances that you have created in one day. It might be easier for you to export the data and import it to your bank account, so your bank account can make the back payments for you. And finally, we'll be going through how to void a remittance. So if you've created a remittance and you do not want the remittance, it was incorrect, you forgot to do something, what to do if you need to get rid of that remittance in Arthur, okay? We have quite a few new people that have joined, so as I said before, any questions that you have, please put them in the Q&A section. I will be answering all questions at the end of the webinar. But if you have a question and maybe, you know, you've forgotten, just so that you don't forget, sorry, what it is that you want to ask, please just jot the question down as I'm doing the webinar and I will answer all questions at the end, okay? Okay, lovely. So we will be going through this one by one. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen very briefly. And I will be re-sharing my screen now. Okay, so the first thing we will be covering today is your settings preferences on how you wish to remit to your landlord. So what that essentially means is a lot of businesses have different ways to remit to their landlords. So what it is what you want to do is you want to ensure in Arthur that you have the correct settings from the beginning, okay? So what that basically means is, let me give you an idea. So if you have a landlord, let's say, I don't know, with 10 properties, this landlord owns 10 properties in Arthur. So on every single property, it will say that this specific landlord maybe owns a property, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your remittance preferences are correct before you create your remittance to your landlord, okay? So how to do that is you would go to contacts, you would go to property owners. I'm going to choose this property owner. And when you go into the property owner contact, you have here, you've got something here that says properties and units. So this tells you the properties that the landlord owns and the units that the landlord owns, okay? If I go into properties here, I can see that this landlord owns 2 properties in my Arthur account, okay? And I can see that the remit by preference is by property. This means that when I am remitting to my landlord, on the remittance page, it will show Oxford Street as one remittance and 9923 as a separate remittance, okay? That means that they will be sent on a property by property basis. Now, the same thing goes for units. So you would still have it as property owner because you want to remit by property owner, but at the property level, it would be on a property by property basis, okay? So on the remittance page, it will show as a property. Now, if you have a landlord that has 10 properties, and when you are making payments to that landlord with 10 properties, you make a bulk payment to the landlord. So it doesn't matter which property it is, you will be sending them a bulk payment. If 10 rents have come in, you are sending them 10 rents out as a batch. What you would need to do is you would need to make sure where it says properties, you would need to change this remit by preference to property owner, okay? So when I go to properties, if I update remit by and I go to property owner, what this will do, once this is updated, it needs to say property owner. If I go to units, it will also need to say property owner. And what that will do is on your remittance page, it will have all of the properties showing in one remittance, okay? Okay, so this is the first thing that you would need to do, okay? Now, the next bit for setting your preferences for your landlords is moving forward, you might want to change the way your preferences are set up in Arthur, okay? So what would happen is if I go to my company's name on the top left-hand corner and I go to preferences and I go to financial, if I go to remittance here, you can change your default remittances. So what this means is when I change this preference, it means that whenever I create a new landlord in Arthur, by default, this will be the remit by preference. So this is how all landlords will be remitted. So I could do, if I do property owner, what will happen is remit by property owner for the unit. What that means is for any new landlord that I create in Arthur, all of them need to be remitted by property owner, which essentially means that I will be sending bulk payments to all the landlords that I plan to add in Arthur moving forward. Now, if it does change, you know, even when you do create the new landlord, it's not the end of the world because you can still go into the contact of that landlord, just like I showed you before, and you can change your preference for that landlord here in the contacts. Okay, so I have gone through the setting preferences of how you would like to remit your landlord. So now remit to your landlord, sorry. So now we will be learning the process of creating a remittance, paying your landlords and sending them statements, okay? So The process of paying your landlords in Arthur essentially is you create a remittance in Arthur. You would use the property owner payments list to tell you how much needs to be paid to your landlords. And once that's done, pardon me, you would be sending out batch statements or individual statements to your landlords, okay? So the whole process is like this. So if I come into Arthur and I go to financials, okay, you have a financials dashboard here. You have a payable to owner section in Arthur, and you also have a property owner remittance. Now, these two boxes will take you to the exact same page. Okay? And these will take you to the exact same page. So if I click on payable to owner, what this does is it takes me to the remittance page for me to remit to my landlord, okay? I have one landlord here. His name is Frank James. What I will do is I will show you how to process a remittance. We can add some deductions for the landlord from this page as well. Some of you, I know quite a few people are not aware that you can add deductions from the remittance page as well. So I will show you how to do that. Okay, so if I go in and I click on remit, okay, what this is it tells me this tenant has paid on the 1st of January, this tenant's also paid on the 1st of February. I'm going to untick this box because I will use the 1st of February for the batch remittance. But what it is here, I've got my received rent, I have my management fees here as a deduction. And what I want to do is I want to add a deduction for the landlord as well. Instead, with some clients, they tend to go back into Arthur, you know, add a transaction against the unit and then deduct it from the landlord that way. You can actually, in the remittance, you can add a transaction here on the right-hand side to deduct money from the landlord, which essentially will save you time from going all the way back into Arthur, adding the deduction for that landlord, and then coming back onto the remittance page, okay? So what you can do is you can add, let's say I want to add a contractor charge, right? A disbursement charge recharge is what we add in Arthur. And what that essentially is even if you have forgotten to add the charge for the contractor on Arthur, you can actually still do it from the remittance page, okay? So for those of you who don't know, I think this might be included in another webinar of some sort, or maybe you might need a knowledge-based article on this, but in Arthur, we have something called a disbursement charge recharge, which essentially allows you to create a contractor charge on the statement, but also recharge the landlord. If you do charge any markups for your landlord, the landlord doesn't see the markup. That is a question that I get quite a lot from clients, so I just wanted to let you guys know, just in case you didn't know. But yes, you can add a disbursement charge, you can add a sundry charge, you can add any type of charge you want from the remittance page. So you do not necessarily need to go back into Arthur, add the charge and then come back here. This will make your life a lot more easier. So I want to add a disbursement charge against, let's have a look which property it is, Unit 1, Bridge Street. I'm going to put, I don't know, gas safety, right? I want to create an additional charge for the contractor because I didn't add it on the contractor statement either by mistake. So I'm going to add a disbursement charge. My contractor is Sweeties. I don't know why my contractor is called Sweeties. And it's for £50 that I'm going to recharge the landlord, and the contractor also charged me £50. So in this scenario, I'm not actually charging a markup. And what I'm going to do with that, I'm going to press add. Okay. So we have the The disbursement charge, this is the one that's created for the contractor, but it will not show as a tick box because it's not included in the remittance. It will go onto the contractor statement. Alternatively, you know, if you wanted to, you could add, you know, a sundry charge for the same unit. I don't know. I'll just put test because I can't think of anything that would be a sundry charge. But sundry charge, you can add £10. We're going to add that in. And as you can see, it's just deducting away from the remittance. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to remit the transactions. Oh. I think something's wrong with my internet. What's wrong with, let me have a look if it's something wrong with my internet. Just bear with me. Sorry guys, this is really annoying. Oh, lovely. Sorry. Yes, my internet was acting up for a second. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Moving on. So we have a remittance here of £570. We have the total payments, the total charges, and the remittance amount. What I'm going to do is the remittance date. I will put it as today's date, as I want to pay my landlord, and I'm going to remit to my landlord, and that is done. Now, showing you how to do a batch remittance. Now, a batch remittance is very straightforward. This is making the assumption that you are happy with all of the figures that are going over to the landlord. So that means that you're not going in individually to do a remittance. Essentially, what you're doing is you're just going to tick the box, click on batch remittance. This just gives me a breakdown of the payments, the management fee, if you have any floats that you want to make an adjustment for, and what's left to pay the landlord and what bank it's coming out from. It's coming out of the client's account. So what I'm going to do is with the batch remittance, I'm just going to press start remittance, press OK. Okay, so from that, I have 2 remittances in Arthur. Now, the next step of when you're making your payments is going to something that we have in Arthur called the property owner payments list. Okay, so the property owner payments list, I will explain to you what it is, how to get there step by step. So if I go to financials, I go to property owner payments list. What this will do, if I just choose unpaid, I'll just get rid of these because this is something completely different. But what will happen is you will come to the property owner payments list and you will see what is unpaid on this list, okay? These are all the remittances that I have just created, okay? Now, there are a few things that you can do from this page, okay? So the first thing is you can send a statement to your landlords so that they can see the breakdown of what will be the money that has been sent to them or will be sent to them at some point, okay? Now, how you would do that is you would go into print remittance. Let me just come back here. I want to see this specific remittance. And first I will show you how to create the remittance individually. And then I will show you how to send the remittances in batch to your landlords just from one email. Okay. So the first thing is individually. So individually, I'm going to print this remittance. Okay. I want to see the statement for this remittance. So what I'm going to do is click on print remittance. Okay. Once that's done, I want to do it as a property owner remittance statement. So I'm going to press continue. When this has loaded, you will be presented with the property owner remittance statements. I'm just going to be honest, I prefer the summary remittance statement template. We have 3 different templates. We also have a split remittance template as well. I prefer the summary remittance statement just because it looks more cleaner. On the first page, here would be your company logo, of course. It would have the landlord's name along with the details of the landlord, but my landlord is just very simple. You have the remittance summary here. So any management fees been deducted. If there are disbursement charges, the disbursement charges will also show. You have your tenant receipt and you've got the full amount of what's owed to the landlord. Okay. If I scroll down, you can see the money coming in and the money coming out. Now, this is from the landlord's perspective. So money coming in from the landlord's perspective and money coming out from the landlord's perspective. Okay. But this is the type of statement that you would be sending over to your landlord. Again, we do have other templates. We have the normal remittance statement, which is money coming in, money coming out, and then an income and expenditure table at the bottom. You also have something called a PO remittance statement, and it's just literally for unit 1. It has the tenant, the management fees, and again, it has an income and expenditure table at the bottom. You can choose whichever one you want. I usually choose the summary remittance statement just because it looks a lot more cleaner, but again, it's entirely up to you. Now, once you have the statement, to send individually. Now, you could do it this way, but it doesn't have the landlord's email in there. But what you can do is you can send an email as an Adobe PDF file. If I press OK, you would put the landlord's email in here, the subject and the message. Okay. I personally wouldn't recommend you doing this because it is a lot more time consuming. I would say even if you're sending one statement to a landlord, do it as a batch because it's a lot easier for you. Okay. But this is an option if you wish to do it individually. Okay. Now, if we're going to send it in batch, this is my favorite one. What we would do is we would tick the box at the top. Now, what we need to ensure is everything that's on this page is unpaid before we do anything, okay? So essentially, what would happen is you would tick the box. If you've got, more items on other pages, select all the other ones on the other pages as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on batch print PDF, okay? When you do a batch print PDF, you choose what type of statement you want to have for the landlords from this payments list when you send out the batch payment, okay? I mean, the batch remittances to the landlords, okay? So again, I'm going to choose the summary statement because that's my favorite statement, and I'm going to click on batch print. This will take a few seconds. Okay, so the batch remittance has been completed. And as you can see here, it says printed at 11:30 on the 22nd of February. So this tells you that you've already batch printed these remittances, okay? And the next thing I'm going to do is tick the box again, and I'm just going to share via email because I've already chosen this landlord for a batch. So I'm now going to share it via email. Now, what would happen is this has the same landlord on this page, okay? But you would have multiple landlords on this page, okay? So what would happen is you would have a list of all of the different landlords here. You would have a list of all of their emails. Now, the reason why this landlord doesn't have an email on here is just because of the way my Arthur account is set up, okay? If you want to add an email for your landlord, or if there is a missing email here, what you need to do is you need to come back into another tab, go to contacts, go to property owners, and go into that landlord and edit the details of that landlord and put the primary email in here. I don't have a primary email for this landlord, which is why the email is not showing here. But on your Arthur accounts, the emails will show, okay? And the emails have to show in order for you to send those emails out to your landlord. Okay, so I have a list of landlords here. I want to send them an email in batch. Now, each of these remittances have their own attachments with its own individual statement in here. So if I go into preview, I can see the Frank James statement for all of the things that, you know, this is the second one where I did it with the batch remittance. And then if I come into here with a preview again, I can see another one with all of the deductions, the disbursement, the management fees, the sundry charge I created. I can see the template here as a preview before I send it out to the landlord, okay? So you can preview it here, make sure you're happy with it, and then send out the email to the landlord, okay? Now, the next step is you would click on edit body of email, okay? And here you can create the email, one email that will send to all of your landlords with their own individual statements in one go. So what you would do is I'm going to right click on my mouse. And what that allows you to do, it allows you to have a certain sort of variation. So it picks up the names and stuff. So you can put to the company name. So it might say to, I don't know, Arthur Online Limited. You could do to first name. A lot of the clients I work with do to last name to make it sound a bit more professional. So to last name, please find attached, blah, 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 the remittance statements for, you know, this month or something like that, okay? What you would do is you would share payments to all payees, and it will send one email to all landlords, yeah? And they will receive their statements from there. Alternatively, if your landlord wants to see their statement, I would also recommend, you know, inviting your landlords to the property owner app. They can also see their statements from the app as well, maybe to save you a bit more time as well, okay? What I would say is if you want to invite a landlord for the property owner app and maybe, you know, you need some assistance on it, please contact someone from the functionality team and they would be happy to assist you, okay? Okay, so once you've sent the email out to the landlords, you would then more or less make the payment to the landlords. Now, there's two things that I'm going to do to show what I will show you. The first thing is, if you are a landlord, then what would happen is, sorry, property manager. If you're a property manager and you have multiple landlords that you need to send payments to, and maybe you can't be bothered to go in and, you know, edit each and every one, go into your bank account and pay each and every one of them, you do have the option to export the data from Arthur as a CSV, okay? And import it to your bank account. Now, every bank is different. So the template that we have on Arthur is sort of like a generic template. It might be the same template that your bank needs. It might not be, but it has the correct fields. So it's just a case of copying and pasting it into the correct fields, okay? So What this means is you would in your bank account, you'd log into your online banking. You can export the template of what the bank needs in order for you to make a BACS payment in your bank account. What you then do is you come into Arthur and you can export it as a CSV. This isn't going to work because I don't have this CSV on my actual Arthur account, which is very stupid. But what you would do is you'd export it as a CSV. You can put the summary of what you want it to be called. The report would just be a payment list, CSV report, and then you would click on export. Once you've exported it, it will be exported as a CSV profile. So essentially, it's an Excel profile. And basically what you can do is you would compare it to the statement that the template that your bank account has. If it's the same template, you would just import it to your bank account and allow the BACS payment to go out. Essentially, alternatively, sorry, you can, if it's not the same, you can just copy and paste it over. But that is, this is an option for you. Now, once you have paid your landlord, so it could be via BACS payment when you export a CSV, or it can be when you pay your landlords individually. What you would do in Arthur is you would set this as paid. So again, you just tick the box at the top, set it as paid, and I'm setting all of them as paid. Okay. Now, when you've set it as paid, the unpaid screen will now refresh, and then you would do the same process when you have a remittance. But I would definitely say, just to make sure that everything is correct, you are setting things as paid. Now, if you're connected to Xero, if you're connected to the live bank feed, if you're just using Arthur by itself, this setting as paid does not impact anything on Arthur. It doesn't impact your bank account. It doesn't impact Xero. It doesn't impact anything. This is just a standalone page for you to know what you have paid and what you have sent out, okay? And if you want to see what's paid, you can go to the filter section and you can see what's paid here, okay? Now, another thing to also add, sorry, which I didn't, my apologies, is you would need to, when you're exporting the data here, you would need to ensure that the bank account details for the landlord is here. As you can see, I have a landlord here with the bank account details for this landlord here. Now, how you would, again, this is to do with setting up your landlords in Arthur correctly. For Frank James, again, if I go to bank accounts, I don't have a bank account set up for Frank James. So what I would do is I would ensure all of your landlords have a bank account set up in Arthur. And then what will happen is when you've added the bank account and you've added all of the landlord's details here, then essentially what would happen is when you go to the payments list, those bank account details for that landlord will show, okay? It will show exactly like this. What bank it is, account number, sort code. So when you're exporting the data to import to your bank account, or even if you're just making manual payments to the landlords, you have the bank details here, okay? So I've gone through all of the processes. So the main thing is you need to be creating the remittance and using the remittance figures to pay your landlords. A lot of people like to pay the landlords, make a manual, they like to create manual sort of workings and pay the landlord, and then from there create a remittance in Arthur and then pay the landlord, and it's not matching, you know, what you've worked out. That does allow, by you manually working things out, it does allow room for human error. We are all human, we are not perfect. So the main thing is you need to come into Arthur, create the remittance, use the figures from the payment list to pay your landlord, and then pay your landlords out, okay? And then send the statement, or if you want to send the statements before, that's entirely up to you. It is your business at the end of the day. However you want to run your business, is perfectly fine, but best practice is remittance created first and pay landlords from payments list figures in Arthur. Okay. The last thing I want to go through with you guys is just voiding a remittance. How you would void a remittance is, I've got this unit here, you know, this 570 pounds is incorrect. I've got to add another charge, or I'm expecting another rent payment. So instead, I'm going to pay the landlord tomorrow when I receive the other rent payment. All you would do is, there's two ways you can do it. You could either go into the unit or you can go into the contact of the landlord. It is the same thing. If I go to the unit here and I go to statements, and I go to property owner, I can see that there is a remittance here for 570 pounds. All I would do is when I go to the property owner statement in this in the unit, I would just click on here and I would click on void transaction. I know there is something here that says undo remittance, but please, everyone, ignore it, okay? We only want you to do void transaction. We are working on getting rid of this undo remittance here because I know it's really confusing, but when you're undoing a remittance, please, please, please click on void transaction. When you click on void transaction, what you would see here before you void it, it says the property owner remittance will be removed and it will show here that it will be voided. And then what that means is these transactions will not be voided, but they will be unallocated. So they will still sit on the remittance statement, but they would just show as unremitted because it hasn't been remitted. So you would click on void transaction and then you would just press OK, and then that would be done, okay? There is another way of doing it. You can go into the landlord. So you go to contacts, you go to property owners. I'm going to Frank James because that's the remittance I want to void. I'm going to statements. And again, it's the same process. You just come in here, click on void transaction, and then you just confirm it. It says this will be void. This will be, this is the cash book reference. We want to remove it from the cash book. We want to void the property owner remittance, and we want these two to be unallocated from the remittance. So I'm going to click on confirm. Okay, and essentially this still shows here as it still needs to be remitted. Okay, so that is everything. I have covered everything on the list. I hope that was really helpful for everyone. I will now be going through the Q&A section. If you have any questions, please add them in the Q&A section and I will just work through them as we go along. Okay, so first question, can you please explain in more detail the differences between remitting by property owner or by property or by tenancy? Yes, I can. So it is a bit more complicated. It took me a while to understand it, but essentially all it is if I come into properties, remitting by, let me have a look, differences between remitting by property owner or by property or by tenancy. Okay, when you remit by property owner, you have 10, let's say I have 10 different properties, okay? Remitting by property owner means that you're remitting by the entity. So you have, this landlord has 10 properties and I'm remitting by the entity, okay? So if 10 rents come in, I want to pay my landlord for all of those 10 rents in one go, okay? Remitting by property means that you have a landlord who owns 10 properties. A landlord that owns 10 properties and he prefers to have his payments on a property by property basis. So when you remit by property, the remittance will only show based on one particular property at a time, okay? And remit by tenancy basically means that when you are remitting to the landlord, you're doing it on a unit by unit basis, okay? So you might have a property with 10 units in it. Instead of remitting it by property, you want to remit it by tenancy. So if I have, I don't know, 10 flats in one block, remitting it by tenancy means that you would essentially be remitting it on a unit by unit basis, okay? I hope that makes sense. Can you change the default remittance statement template for sending in bulk? At this current moment, you can't, but we are hoping to do that in the next few months. So just bear with us. Let me just have a look. Actually, preferences, financials, remittances, no, payments list. No, this is just a payments list. No, yeah, the answer is no. I thought so. Yes, we will be working on it at some point because it has been something that has been asked by a few people. Okay, can statements be automatically sent or an email sent to the landlord to tell them a new statement is ready to view in their account rather than having to manually send even in batch? So to answer your question, the actual statement itself cannot be automatically sent to the landlord. However, in Arthur, we have something called an automation. This is, again, this automation is literally functionality team. So I'm not the greatest person on automations, but there is an automation in Arthur where if I go to, where is it? Is it financials? Here we go. Remitted to property owner. You can add an action in Arthur where when you create a remittance, the landlord will receive an email straight away, which will be an automation saying, hi, so-and-so, a remittance has been created of £600 on this date and so forth. But an actual statement will not be sent to them, but they can be informed, and you can create your own sort of custom automations as well. So you can notify the landlord from here, but the physical statement will not be sent to the landlord until you physically go in and send the statement to the landlord, okay? Sorry about that. And can you template the email to the landlord when sending statements rather than having to type manually each time? Again, this is something that has been noted from quite a lot of people that use Arthur, quite a lot of our clients. What we are working on at the moment, you would have to have maybe your own Word document and just copy and paste it over every time. But what we are working on is in the preferences section, in financials, very soon in, later on in the year. We want to add sort of like a template section for these, for all of your sort of contractor remittances, your landlord remittances, your tenant, rent demands and so on. So you can have your own templates and you can choose a template. But for the meantime, at the moment, you don't have your own templates. You would essentially just have to copy and paste it every time. Okay, next question. When sending a statement in bulk, it prompts you to edit the cover email. Is there a way of setting up a default email template? Okay, I just answered that question, lovely. Okay, can I ask you if we should set as paid before reconcile and payment via bank reconciliation? So as soon as you've made the payment to the landlord, I would set it as paid, even if you haven't reconciled it. But again, it's entirely up to you. It's your business at the end of the day. If you want to set it as paid once you've actually reconciled it, then that's fine. But then, what if you don't actually, what if you haven't reconciled it and, you might end up paying the landlord twice, So personally, I would always set it as paid once the landlord has been paid straight away, rather than waiting for it in the bank to reconcile it with the bank, because it's already been paid, So yeah. When voiding transaction, if a Xero user, will the changes automatically be made in Xero? No, it will not. I can't show you how to do that in this call today, but basically there is a knowledge-based article on undoing property owner remittances for zero users. You would need to void the remittance in Arthur, and then you would need to undo the remittance in zero. Essentially, you would have to unallocate all the bill credits from the bills and then void the overpayment. So if you are a zero user and you have problems with this, please book in a tutorial with a financial specialist so that they can assist you with this. Okay. Can you add copies of paid invoices, i.e. management, utilities, repairs, etc., alongside remittance statements when sending via email on Arthur? Unfortunately, you can't do that at the moment. You would have to send your landlord something a bit more individual. So if I just go into Frank James, again, I keep using this person as an example, but Frank James has a disbursement charge here. Essentially, what you would have to do is I want to print this. I want to print it as a invoice. And essentially what you would have to do is you would have to send this invoice to the landlords separately. And obviously it will have your bank account details here as well. This is obviously, again, like in some cases, the landlord might pay the money directly to you. So when that does happen, then you obviously would need to send it out, sorry, to the landlords from here, okay? Next question. Shanice, you mentioned a float adjustment. I assume this means to hold back funds that are not yet due to the landlord. Is there another way to set a float amount before the remittance stage? Thank you. No, you would need to do the float amount from the remittance stage, unfortunately. Yes, it does mean hold back funds. I wouldn't say hold back funds that are not yet due. Float adjustment is more when you need to hold back funds from the landlord, maybe to go towards any sort of contractor charges and so on. But there wouldn't be another way to set a float amount before the remittance page. You would have to do it from the remittance so that it can take all figures into consideration and the float amount is correct on Arthur. Okay, is there a best way to remit, i.e. should I always remit by property owner unless the property owner requested remit by property? Now, again, it's very subjective. I think every business does things very differently. So it's about what you think is best for you. If your landlords are not really worried about how they receive their payments or anything, it might be a case of, you know, leaving your Arthur account the way it is now. It might not necessarily be a big issue. I know for some clients it is a big issue. Landlords want their money in a specific way. So again, it's entirely up to you. I can't tell you how to run your business. It doesn't matter. Either way, the landlord will be paid, but it's just how your landlord wants to do it. If you want to remit by property owner, unless the landlord requests to remit by property, then by all means do so. But again, it's how you want to run your business. I can't tell you how to do it. It's not my place. Sorry. Next question. When paying using the CSV method, will various contractors and agency deductions also be sent to their respective bank accounts? If you're doing contract, when you say agency deductions, no. So it's based on the remittances. So it's based on the remittance figure that goes to the landlord. You can do CSV methods for the contractors as well, if you need to pay your contractors, but that's assuming you're creating a contractor remittance. But when you say agency deductions, I'm a bit confused. What it does is it literally just takes the figure from the remittance page when I go to the payments list. So whatever's owed to the landlord here, this is the money that goes to the landlord. And the same for contractors as well. If you create a contractor remittance, which I don't, okay, I've got one here. You can also export it as a CSV, which then allows you to pay your contractors as well from Arthur. But that's the only thing that it does. It just takes the figures of what is supposed to be paid and then going into your bank account. But it doesn't sort of, I mean, the remittance takes all of the deductions into consideration. So the correct amount will be sent out to out of your bank account. Okay, I'm new to Arthur. Learned property / unit addition, adding recurring charges, compliance certificates, but my financial section is weak. What should I do? Where to start? Okay, so you have a few options. I would say first things first is to book a tutorial with someone from the financials team. How to do that is you just click on need help in Arthur, get help, book a tutorial. And what it will do, it will just redirect you here. Choose which financial specialist that you want to have a call with. There's me, if you want to book with me. And then you can just book it through with me or anyone else on the team. Honestly, they're such an amazing bunch. And then what you can do from there is you would have that call, work out, you know, where you're weak in financials. You can speak about your specific business model, so you can have help with your specific business model rather than just knowing everything about Arthur, because there's so many things that you might not need to know because it's not your business model. And then also from there, you can speak to the financial specialist, depending on, you know, how weak you think your financial section is. They can sort of give you options. Maybe you might need to upgrade your Arthur account to enterprise. Maybe you might need to purchase on-site training day or a half-day online training day. So yeah, I would just say booking a call with a financial specialist, let them know what your problem is, and then from there, they would be able to know where you start. Okay. Next question. If remitting by property owner, will it show a breakdown of property's rent charges on the owner's statement? Yes, it will. It will have a breakdown of everything. Can I batch remit to the landlord? That has 2 emails. E.g., I have a landlord that requires a copy to be sent to him and another copy sent to the joint landlord. If I remember correctly, no, it goes to 1 email, I'm afraid. But then again, I wouldn't be able to fully answer that. What I would say is to pop onto the live chat and ask someone from functionality. But if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I believe the answer is no. Sorry. How to connect with Zero works. How to connect. Can you please expand what you mean by how to connect with Zero? If you want to know how to connect with Zero, how to connect Arthur with Zero, or how it works, then what I would do is, again, I would recommend you booking in a tutorial with a financial specialist to go through how Zero works with Arthur. Unfortunately, this webinar today is not about how Zero works with Arthur. It's just mainly to do with the remittances. So I would recommend for you to book in a call with someone from the team. Okay, Shanice, are there any plans to include a list of tenants' financial positions within the landlord statement, i.e. whether the tenants are paid up to date or in arrears? Thank you. Okay, so Debbie, again, this kind of links back to the automations. You can have your own. I've seen it on quite a few client accounts where you can create your own custom automation, where an automation can get sent out to the landlord via email to let them know that it's been paid. In terms of like a list to send to the landlord, you can actually do that, but that will be classified as a bespoke report, which will be at an additional charge. But essentially, again, you can speak to someone from functionality. If you want the landlords to be notified that the tenant is in arrears, you can, pardon me, have an automation from the automation page, which will tell the landlord that your tenant is in arrears. Okay, maybe if, you know, the tenant hasn't paid for 7 days, a notification goes to the landlord saying the tenant for this property is currently in arrears, and you can also send a notification out to the tenant as well to let them know that they're in arrears from the automation section as well. Okay. After remitting letting management fee to property owner, I understand it creates the transferable income. Can you explain me the procedures after that or guide me to the knowledge-based articles for that? Okay, so just to abbreviate it, yes. If you go to transferable income here, it will have everything that you remitted to the landlord. This says ready to transfer. All you would basically do is you would come in, let's go to today's date. So this is everything that I've done today. Obviously, I've undone the other remittance, which is why it's not showing here. All you would do is you just tick the box, transfer to recognizable income. I'm transferring this from the client account to the business account. So I'm going to send it to the current account, and I'm just going to put a reference, J to transfer. You can put the transferable income to, and we want it to go to the business account, and then confirm. Okay, now it is a bit of abbreviation. I think there is a knowledge-based article on it. Let's just double look. Let's just have a check. Just bear with me 1 second. Transferable income. Here we go. You have here understanding the income screen. What I would suggest as well is to book in a tutorial with someone if this still doesn't make any sense to you whatsoever. And yes, or come onto the live chat and maybe ask someone for assistance. So yeah, I hope that was a little bit helpful. I know I did breeze through it, but obviously the income screen isn't something for us to discuss today. The charge for automation is very high. Should this not be part of the package? Now, the charge for automations, you can create your own automations in Arthur here and add your own custom triggers. So you don't necessarily need to pay for an automation. Automation, if you want to pay for an automation, that's you sort of providing a list of all the automations that you want, and we would do it as well. These automations that are already here in Arthur are sort of like generic ones, so these are like default. If you want to have your own custom automations, then that would be where an Arthur specialist would carry it out for you, and we would send you an invoice for us to carry out that work. Okay. But alternatively, you can create your own, automations yourself. You do not necessarily have to pay. Shanice, when selecting the transactions, you want to include in the landlord's remittance statement, does Arthur flag up if you have accidentally included a receipt if the rent, which isn't yet due to be paid to the landlord? No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Arthur doesn't tell you that. If a tenant has paid a rent that's not yet due, technically it should be on the statement as an overpayment, or you can just go onto the remittance and just select the correct one. But no, unfortunately, it doesn't. It doesn't do that. Sorry. I'm sorry. Where is the charge for tutorials? So tutorials are charged at £45 plus VAT. However, if you have a professional subscription with Arthur, you are entitled to 1 free tutorial a month. If you have an enterprise package with Arthur, you are entitled to 3 free tutorials a month. They are 1 hour each. They can be spread around functionality or financials. It doesn't matter, but it comes with your package. Anything that is, if you have a standard Arthur subscription, or if you're doing more tutorials than you're supposed to for that month, then it will be an extra £45 plus VAT. Essentially, if you are a standard user, it might be, it's usually cheaper if you upgrade your Arthur account to a professional Arthur account, rather than paying the £45 plus VAT, because it's usually about maybe £20 or £30 more a month. But again, it's entirely up to you what you want to do. We don't have access to automation without paying a very high subscription. Okay, let me just have a look at automation. Automated events and processes are on all Arthur accounts. So if you don't have access to automations, then what I would suggest is you speak to someone on the live chat or support or anything else to find out why your automations are not working. Okay, so do we have any more questions for today? I'll just give it another minute, see if there's any more questions. Okay, well, it looks like there are no more questions. So thank you everyone for taking part and taking your time out to come here today. This recording will be on YouTube if you need to refer back to it. Thank you so much for joining the webinar, and we will be back next month with another webinar. So please sign up if you think it's beneficial to you. Thank you everyone, really makes my day that you guys are happy. Okay, take care, have a lovely day, bye.